Evening, everybody. It's 6:26 on Wednesday, the 13th of December, and this is your closing comment. It is video number 2009. Okay, so uh, Powell sparked the market. Everybody loved what he had to say, and the indexes were all higher. The Dow was the only one that made a new all time high and a new all time high close over 37,000, up 513. What was interesting about the indexes were that they were all pretty much in alignment. The Dow was up 1.4%, the Nasdaq was up 1.38%, and the S&P was up 1.37%. Dow Jones Transports up 1.28. The one that was not aligned really put on a show, and that was the Russell, up 66.24 or 3.52. And unlike the last couple of days, what we had today was big volume, 6.8 billion shares traded, which is substantially higher. Yesterday, I believe, was back in the 4.9 or so. Advanced declines on the NYSE were 8-1 up, and on the NASDAQ, they were 3-1 up. So pretty interesting. What was also somewhat interesting was the fact that the excuse me, the VIX was actually up. I mean, it's at an extraordinary low level around 12. It was below 12, closed 12.19, up 12 cents or just 1%, but up on a day like today is kind of unusual. Unfortunately, the economy is telling a different story than the stock market is, with inflation. While the rate of inflation is lessening and lessening dramatically, I have to give them that. Um, Real prices are still higher. If you look at 3 years ago to today, the rate of change has diminished, but the direction has not. And that's a real problem. 62% of the population are living paycheck to paycheck, which is a terrible way to be. And most cannot afford to meet a $400 emergency. I did not reissue the order to buy the grains today. The wheat was down 20 cents, and while it's in an area of support, I'd like to see it stabilize first. The oil was up about 86 cents. Tonight it's up an additional 44 cents. This is incorrect, I believe, on the gold. After the close, the settlement price looked like 1997.30, up 410. But I had seen it right before the close around 2030. Tonight's open shows as up 43, even though in point of fact, I believe that's incorrect. Same situation with the silver. The silver showed down 9/10 of a cent, and it's actually up $1.15 tonight. Copper is up a nickel. The dollar is what really got plowed here. 102.84, down 99 cents. Bitcoin was up 1755 is up another 90, has been up another couple of hundred besides. Same situation with Ethereum, higher tonight. And the bonds, which were up 2 1/8 today, are up a little over another eighth tonight. Okay, Etsy lays off 11% of their workforce. The stock had closed at 86.93 and got down as low on that news as 78.54. The last on it is 83.97. That's down $1.85, but a little bit above mid range, but down 2.16%. Adobe had earnings after the close, and they were horrendous. The stock had closed 624.26. It was already down 940 when the numbers came and the guidance came. They missed the numbers, and the guidance was poor. The stock went from that 624 and change down to 565. The low of the day was 565, and the last on it tonight is 589.66. That's down $44.16, or just under 7%. One that I think is probably a buy, and I'll go get into it with you in a second, and that was Pfizer. Um, Interesting about Pfizer, I mentioned it this morning, and they gave very poor guidance, and the stock was 26.53, down $2.05, or 6.8%. It actually traded as low as 25 and three quarters, 25.76 actually. However, the stock came back and made a new high on the day, even though it had gapped down. And the last, that was 26.73. The last on it is 26.63. And 26.63 is down about $1.94. But it closed pretty much on the high. And I think that this one is going to be an interesting bounce. Now, the reason that I say that is really pretty simple. In looking at the chart, the stock is back to 10-year lows. Um, but besides that, and the fact that the on balance volume will look like an up day because the stock closed higher than it opened, and also normally trades about 30 million, traded 157.8 million so far. It doesn't close for another hour and a half. But just a couple of quick statistics that were pointed out to me by a subscriber and good friend. For all of its bluster and everything, this is still a relatively small company. The market cap here is 150 billion. To give you an example, Eli Lilly, which has certainly had a great run of late on their drugs for weight loss, etc., is a $567 billion company. That's where it ends. The dividend for Lilly is 0.72%. And the dividend, which should be supportive for Pfizer, is $1.57. That's 5.9%. The coverage of that dividend, in other words, how much of their earnings it takes to cover that payout, is 29%, which basically means, number one, they're never going to miss a dividend. Number two, there's room for it to increase to the upside. The stock sells for 14.6 times earnings, and the forward PE, so for next year, estimates would reduce it to 8.4 times earnings. Now, that's exactly what Warren Buffett was talking about, that Charlie Munger taught him, and that is to buy good stocks, even great stocks, at a reasonable price. And I think the 10-year low on this company is a reasonable price. So I'm looking at something that I think should bounce in here. I'll probably use the January expiration, maybe the 38s with, pardon me, 28s or the 27s. The 27s actually closed today at around 72 cents. Um, and the volume on them was tremendous. They had an open interest of 474 as of last night. Today they traded 25,831. So while we may have some more work to do down here, I think this makes an interesting play, and chances are I will now turn around and add it into our stocks for total return. Um, and if by chance we get enough of a rally, I may write against it and increase that yield in that stocks for total return portfolio. So thanks, Dan, for pointing it out. All right, folks, I'll be back first thing in the morning. And, I wish I could say I was excited about this, but this market is so overbought and so extended, I really find it difficult to get excited, even with a new high. Have a good evening.